You won't believe what's really happening behind the walls of Cody Brown's mansion and why he just called his own sons jerks and narcissists while they are thriving in Vegas with beers, tattoos, and total freedom. Stick around because we're about to reveal the hidden rebellion that the cameras never show, the secret Vegas gatherings, the Bad Boys Club, and how Logan became the real leader of the Brown family. And if you want to see the full truth about sister wives and the drama the network won't tell you, hit that like button right now and subscribe with notifications on because you do not want to miss a single explosive detail of this story. The story of the Brown family does not start with headlines or camera angles. It starts with quiet cracks in a structure that looked unshakable on the screen. But behind the doors of the Flagstaff mansion, a subtle battle was already underway. The public saw rules being enforced, protocols being followed, and sermons being delivered. But beneath the performative order, there was a slow erosion of authority. And the person most threatened by this quiet rebellion was Cody Brown, the patriarch who had built a life around hierarchy, control, and the illusion of omnipotence. And while the cameras focused on obedience and loyalty, something far more powerful was growing in the sons. The very people who were supposed to mirror his teachings were beginning to see the contradictions. They were noticing the inconsistencies, and they were thinking for themselves. Logan, the eldest son, had always been a model child in the eyes of the cameras, in the eyes of the family. He woke up early, made breakfast, kept schedules organized, and played the role of the golden child with a quiet competence that Cody admired, as long as it served his purposes. But as Logan matured, as he stepped into adulthood and started building a life that was independent of the Flagstaff microcosm, something changed. He stopped performing for approval. He started living in alignment with his own choices, and his brothers noticed it and followed it slowly. Hunter, Garrison, Gabe, and even some of the younger siblings began to see that the life Cody had prescribed was not the only path that success, happiness, or moral integrity could take. And this realization created tension, not loud, explosive tension, but the kind that eats away at authority, because the very foundation of Cody Brown's control depended on dependency and compliance. And once his children began to operate outside of that dependency, the power he wielded became meaningless. The first cracks were subtle. A beer here, a tattoo there, a comment on social media that displayed confidence without fear, a photograph showing laughter without supervision. These acts individually seemed trivial, but collectively they represented a seismic shift in the family dynamic. They symbolized autonomy, the kind of freedom that could not be policed or punished. And as these moments accumulated, the invisible fortress that Cody had built around obedience and subjugation started to crumble. While the cameras showed arguments over COVID protocols, over visits, over respect for the household, the real drama was far deeper. It was generational, it was cultural, it was psychological. It was the slow dismantling of an empire built on fear and projection. And when Cody called his sons jerks or narcissists, it was not about their behavior. It was about the unbearable reality that they no longer needed him. And narcissism thrives on need. Without it, there is anger and grief disguised as fury. And so the labels began, not just on television, but in texts, in whispered conversations, in the small moments where Cody saw independence manifest and could not accept it. Every act of autonomy became a moral test in his mind, every choice a betrayal, because for years he had conditioned himself to see obedience as virtue and divergence as sin. And Logan became the epicenter of this seismic shift because he did not shout, he did not confront, he did not rally a rebellion. He simply walked into his life with Michelle. He made choices that were rational and fulfilling. He built a home, he pursued an education, he cultivated a career, and he lived in a way that was undeniable to his siblings. And by living, he was teaching them that survival did not require compliance, that happiness was possible without sacrifice of self. And as Hunter, Garrison, and Gabe witnessed this model, they began to internalize the same principles. They too could step into adulthood without asking permission, without fear of judgment, without waiting for approval from the man whose identity depended on their dependency. The tension escalated in subtle ways. Cody would see photos online of his sons enjoying normal experiences and interpret them as attacks, violations of faith, and disrespect toward his authority. And while Robin may have amplified this perception, acting as an advisor or enforcer, or simply reinforcing the narrative of disobedience, the reality was that the sons were not attempting to hurt anyone, they were attempting to exist, and exist fully, and the gap between expectation and reality could not be reconciled because Cody's worldview depended on total control, and total control was no longer attainable. Every success the boys achieved outside of his orbit, every home they purchased, every relationship they nurtured, every small victory in life became a reflection of his failure. And the more the world embraced them, the more isolated he became, because the outside validation they received was proof that his rules were neither necessary nor effective. And this created a feedback loop of anger and blame. The rules were broken, the rules were enforced inconsistently, the accusations of disrespect were relentless, but the sons refused to react in the way he expected. They did not plead, they did not conform, they thrived. And that thriving itself was a challenge to authority because it illustrated that control is only powerful when it is accepted, and once it is not accepted, it becomes irrelevant. And as the years passed, this quiet revolution solidified Logan's position as a leader, not by decree, but by example. And the brothers coalesced around him, forming what many insiders describe as the Bad Boys Club, a sanctuary that existed beyond Flagstaff, beyond rules, beyond the performative obedience that the cameras documented. It was a network of support, a fortress of freedom, a place where they could decompress, be human, and reclaim what had been lost in a household obsessed with perfection and image. And the significance of these gatherings cannot be understated, because while Cody may have thought he was enforcing morality or loyalty, the boys were practicing resilience, and in doing so, they created a culture of authenticity that could not be undone by text messages, by admonishments, by threats, by shaming, because the principle of living authentically is immune to external authority. It is learned through experience, observed through example, and embodied through consistent choices. And the more the boys exercised this autonomy, it became obvious to the audience and to anyone paying attention that the narrative of control and righteousness presented on television was incomplete at best, misleading at worst. And the contrast was stark, because while Cody and Robin clung to rules, protocols, and religious ideals that emphasized compliance over connection, over freedom, over joy, the sons embraced a model that prioritized love over hierarchy, mutual respect over domination, and personal integrity over performative piety. And in the process, they not only preserved their own mental health, they created a blueprint for the next generation, a family culture that values humanity above ritual and freedom above fear. And this evolution did not come without cost, because the anger it provoked in Cody was immense, and yet it was also revealing, because it highlighted the fragility of authority built on ego. When independence emerges, the old structures cannot withstand it. The son's choices challenged not just a father figure, but a worldview, a belief system, a cultural paradigm that conflated obedience with virtue and submission with morality. And by existing fully, by laughing, by celebrating, by taking control of their lives, they reframed the story, not with confrontation, not with dramatic defiance, but with ordinary life lived extraordinarily well.
and in doing so, they exposed hypocrisy, illuminated the limits of authoritarian parenting, and proved that resilience thrives where control fails. And as the camera lenses continued to follow them, this reality became undeniable because the footage of birthdays, of holidays, of weddings, of simple moments with friends in Las Vegas showed a life rich in meaning and love and choice, a life where the stakes were self-chosen, not imposed, and every smile, every toast, every shared meal, every tattoo, every shared experience was a quiet act of defiance that carried enormous implications for the family hierarchy and for the audience watching at home, and as each day passed, this reality became more pronounced.
As each post went online, as each photograph appeared, as each beer was held up in camaraderie, the story that unfolded was a testament to human agency, to the strength of sibling bonds, to the transformative power of independence, and to the ultimate truth that happiness cannot be legislated and obedience cannot manufacture connection. And the boys' collective journey from constrained youth to autonomous adulthood became a narrative that challenged the very premise of the show, because the original framing of family unity under paternal guidance was no longer accurate. The brothers were unified not under control, but under choice, not under fear, but under respect, not under obligation, but under love. And the more this became visible, the more it illuminated the contrast between two versions of family, one based on ego, one based on authenticity, one that isolates, one that connects. And the tension between these two realities produced drama that was compelling because it was real, not scripted, because it exposed not only the fractures in a household obsessed with ritual, but also the universal struggle between control and freedom. The sons' rise to agency was deliberate but unspoken, a rebellion conducted quietly, without spectacle, without the need for attention. It was a reclamation of self that could not be televised or explained in sound bites because it was experienced, it was felt, it was lived. And the more this quiet revolution persisted, the more obvious it became that the old methods of enforcement were impotent, that the power of a father over adult sons is limited when those sons have the courage to exist on their own terms. And every act of independence, every successful venture, every celebration, every shared laugh outside the Flagstaff fortress chipped away at the illusion of omnipotence until the realization dawned that authority is conditional and love is unconditional. And this realization was the core of the mystery, the reason for the fury, and the true story behind the jerks and narcissists comment. Because in the end, it was not disobedience, it was autonomy. It was not disrespect, it was growth. And it was this growth that created suspense and drama that no script could manufacture, because life itself was delivering the story of power lost, influence diminished, and a new culture emerging in its place. And as the sons continued to gather, to support each other in Las Vegas, to celebrate, to create memories, to exist fully without fear or approval, the narrative looped back on itself, reinforcing the lesson that joy is revolutionary, freedom is radical, and living authentically is a form of courage that cannot be legislated, controlled, or revoked. And the audience watching could not look away because this drama was visceral, it was real, it was human, and it posed a question that resonated far beyond the walls of any mansion or camera crew. Which is more enduring, authority imposed or love chosen? And the answer played out daily in every photo, every interaction, every moment of laughter, every raised glass, every tattoo inked, and every choice made in defiance of an invisible cage. So here's the truth. Cody tried to control them, but the Brown boys chose freedom and joy. Logan led the way, and the Bad Boys Club showed that love and family don't need fear or obedience. Every tattoo, every beer, every laugh was a rebellion against control and a victory for life lived authentically. If you want to keep seeing the real stories behind sister wives, the secrets, the drama, and the family the network won't show, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and join us because the next explosive chapter is coming and you do not want to miss a single moment.